friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's vlog I will be doing a weekend reading vlog. This is predominantly going to be a fantasy romance vlog because I have several books that I want to read. But first up, we're reading After. I have read this book once before. I read it in 2020 and I had very different ideas of how I wanted to talk about romance and the romance genre, and I can certainly get into that one day if you're interested, but for the purposes of this vlog I'm rereading this. I don't know how my opinions are going to change, but I'm going into this with more of a romance reader's eye than like an average reader's eye. So I am currently 200 pages in. I think if I had read this when everybody else was reading this, like as a teenager on Wattpad and all that kind of stuff, I would enjoy it more. It's very messy and it's very over dramatic and just sort of fun and quick to read. Like I started this last night, I think. I read for a little bit and then I've read here and there today, and I'm already 200 pages in, and this is quite long. Like this bind up of the first book is over 500 pages. If for some reason you don't know what this is about Tessa, who goes to college. She meets Hardin. They have like a tumultuous relationship. It's supposed to be like One Direction fanfiction of Harry Styles, who's Hardin. In the beginning of the book, she is dating someone, and so like the first portion, I would say a good portion of this one involves her cheating, and like they're both kind of like shitty people. She's willingly constantly cheating on her boyfriend, and then she blames it on Hardin, and Hardin is just kind of volatile and toxic and not a good person in general. Just blames, you know, typical sad boy bad boy trope of like blames trauma for bad behavior and just being a generally shitty person. So it's like a good fun time. The actual like things that I want to try to get through this weekend, I don't know how much I'm actually going to get through, but after I am done with After, I want to reread From Blood and Ash because I want to read the rest of the series. If you don't know, I have read this book previously, and I also read the second one and then I stopped, but I do want to finish out the series, and there's just so much that goes on in the first two books that I don't remember. So basically this is about Poppy, who is a maiden, which means that I can't really remember. All I remember is that she has to stay like a virgin, and she has to wear a veil over her face, and she has the thing with her bodyguard. And I didn't like the second one very much. I think I gave this one maybe 3 or 4 stars, like a high 3, maybe a low 4, and then I gave the second one 2 stars. And I have a whole reading vlog reading it on my channel, not enjoying it. But I do want to finish out the series, because like I want to love this series and have like another fantasy romance series that I can turn to. I'm also going to try to get to the second book in the Plated Prisoner series. I read this first one back in September, I think, and I really enjoyed it. It was another fun little fantasy romance that didn't have any romance in this first one that I've heard really good things about, and I want to give it a shot and continue with the series. And then I also want to give Zodiac Academy another shot. I read the first one and I DNF'd it because of the writing style, but I want to give it another try. I'm really in like a fantasy romance mood, and so I'm trying all of the like big popular ones to just like hope I enjoy them. So those last two we're gonna see if I can get to them, because these are quite large. But I think with the way I'm going through After, this should be done hopefully like tonight. It's only 5, and then this one is like 600 pages, but I remember this also being a quick read. So I'm gonna talk to you again when I have some updates, likely when I am finished with this or have some thoughts. Honestly, I remember nothing about this book. I just remember them being more toxic than I'm actually like getting now. because I think Tessa is such like a piece of shit and her character is so wildly dramatic and over the top and just self-centered, it's hard to tell like what situations with Hardin does she blow out of proportion and make worse, and like all of that, and what is him actually being like a piece of shit. Like he undoubtedly is, but it's a little on both ends. But I don't really remember like anything from this. It's been a long time since I've read it, and I haven't read anything beyond it. I know the big twist because I've watched reaction videos to the movies, so I know like that big thing, but I don't know anything else. So I'm gonna come back when I have some updates, and hopefully we get through all of the books that I want to get through this weekend. Hi friends, happy Saturday. The day has kind of gotten away from me because it is 4:30 and I haven't updated you. But just a little while ago, I ended up finishing After. And the first time I read this, I rated this 2 stars. This go round, I would say like a 3. I think there's 2 ways you can look at this story. You can look at it as like a messy, fun time that you can read and have a good time with, or you can look at this as like an abomination and a book that should be kept away from young girls, and you know, that rhetoric of like putting the responsibility on authors. I can assure you that my bad relationship practices throughout my adulthood is not from reading fan fiction or books or romance or anything like that. Hannah Todd or any of the various fan fiction authors that I read growing up had no effect on how I viewed and acted in relationships. So the idea that like teenage girls shouldn't read this, one, they are like, that's it. I don't know how many girls that are my age, or just people in general that are my age, that read this specifically and stories like this when they were teenagers. I did, and here I am, you know. It's not any author's responsibility to teach you life lessons if they don't want to. And I think the interesting thing for me reading this series is going to be like, if I were to compare it to something that's obviously, you know, more well written, better, more emotional, I would compare it to this trilogy by Kennedy Ryan, which starts off with this relationship that is very not great. The hero is not a great person. He's a little bit toxic, and he has a lot of elements that are similar to Hardin. And through that trilogy, you watch them grow and come together and change. I don't know if that's how this is going to go, because like I haven't read the series. Based on the movies, I don't think so, but we'll see. You know, like I think a lot of the times when you watch videos and see stuff of people that are reading this, it's like non-romance readers and people who necessarily don't have the best opinion of the genre, or go in with preconceived notions about the genre, or just have like biases maybe they don't even recognize against the genre. So then they take books like this and they're like, this is what's wrong with romance, you know? And so that's kind of, when I first read this book, I gave it 2 stars. I left a review on the book that was like, don't read this. And I mentioned in a video that I read it, and I went through all of the issues that I had with it. And I took my review down, and I think the video is still up on my channel because I don't think it was like an independent review, but it was like one of the first vlogs that I did on my channel, because I read this in February of 2020, which is a month after I started my channel. And I took this down because romance in general doesn't need any more of a bad rep than it already gets. I think saying, like, dismissing this as a book that just like nobody should buy and like keep it away from teenage girls and it's bad and it's toxic is like not a good precedent to set, because I'm a huge proponent of like, let romance readers read what they want, and that's not necessarily them advocating for that in real life. And readers are of every genre are able to separate fiction from real life, and romance readers should be afforded that opportunity just like everybody else is. So I think reading this and saying like keep this away from people is not really fair. We can talk about how bad it is. We can say yes, it's toxic and has these issues, and it just in all together is like a poorly written story with pretty flat caricatures of characters, and it's just kind of this cycle of like fighting that it just doesn't make for a good story. But I think saying because of the nature of the relationship it should be kept away from people, I don't think is the precedent we're trying to set, right? But altogether, like, this book is not good. It's over-explained, the writing is not great, it's constantly them fighting over and over again, so it's not the best, but I think opinions of this are just a little bit unfair. So I'm definitely going to continue the series, like I have it, and I'm going to continue with the read-along that the community is doing, but just not in this video. So yeah, I would still like give it maybe like a 3-star. Like, it's a good, fun, it's like a fun time. It's easy to read, it's easy to get through, and it's just like messy, but it's not by any means like a relationship that I support, at least in its current capacity of where I am. So, and then I didn't get very far. I got 30 pages into From Blood and Ash, and I mean, not much has happened. The main character, Poppy, is in a bar, and she is said that she's the maiden. She has to wear a veil over her face. She has to remain pure, and she is the ward of the Duke and Duchess. And in the beginning of this, there is a brief conversation about some sort of virus or curse or something that's going around and killing people, and she is in this bar doing, like, watching women dance and, you know, playing card games and stuff like that. So again, I'm not very far in, and like I said previously, I don't really remember much about this book. It's been a long time since I've read it, and all I really remember is like the things that I didn't like about the second one, but I gave this one a pretty high rating, so I'm anticipating that I'm going to enjoy this. Hopefully I can get through to at least the second Plated Prisoner book. I don't anticipate myself being able to get to Zodiac Academy, which is fine because I probably just will read it for another video. But yeah, so I'm gonna update you again when I'm like 100 pages or so in, maybe 200, and have some thoughts. It is over, it's a little under 600 pages, so yes, on to this one. Good morning, friends. I am 200 pages into From Blood and Ash, and I'm enjoying it. This is reading just as quickly as After did, and I enjoy her writing, kind of. She really loves ellipses, but other than that, I don't really have too many complaints. This is about Poppy, who is the maiden, and as I mentioned previously, she has to remain pure, she has to wear a veil, and she seems to have some sort of gift that allows her to remove people's pain through touch. And she also survived a Craven attack, one of the only people that survived it without getting the curse of the Craven and turning. So the predominant storyline of this book, at least, is that women start disappearing, or people start getting attacked in her kingdom. And her kingdom is called, I believe it's called Macedonia. And she is the ward of the Duke and Duchess, and they took her in after her whole family was slaughtered, and she survived that attack. And so she is living with them until she can ascend. Ascension is an unknown kind of ritual that seems to make people immortal, and she is supposed to ascend like soon, I think. I don't know the exact like time frame, but it's supposed to be like the biggest ascension to ever happen, and it's supposed to do something for the community in some way. I'm not sure how. And then we also have the rite, which is a ritual that happens for all of the second born of every family in the kingdom, and they basically get given over to the gods, in service of the gods, and we don't know what that means, we don't know what that entails. And she ends up losing in an attack her current bodyguard, and she gets Hawk, who is a guy who just recently came to the city, and he is someone that she ran into in the Den of Iniquities in the first chapter and had sort of like a steamy moment with, I guess. She was wearing a mask, and so she doesn't know if he knew that that was her, and she wears a veil now. And she has sort of a tumultuous relationship with the Duke and Duchess. The Duchess is very sweet, very motherly to her, but the Duke is very violent and takes any opportunity to punish her, and relishes punishing her along with another nobility that sits in on the punishments and sort of gives the Duke reasons to punish her, I guess. So where I am at, there have been a couple of deaths in the kingdom, and she is trying to investigate why. They think it might be the Atlanteans, which is a fallen kingdom who created the Cravens through their ascension ritual, basically. That created like cravens, so they bit them, and then they had this curse put on them, and now they are like these raving monsters that will attack anybody and then spread the curse. And they think Atlanteans are attacking the kingdom, and so she's trying to do some investigation into that. And where I left off, there has been a Craven attack on the kingdom, and she is up on the battlements, up on the wall, fighting. And like, it's good. It's like it says, captivating and action-packed. I agree. I think this is fast-paced. It's fun. Can't speak to the second one using those adjectives, because it's certainly not fun or fast-paced. But this beginning portion is definitely readable, consumable, fun. So I don't really have too much to say at this point. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Poppy is the most fleshed out character of all time, but you know, it kind of is what it is. And the info dumping hasn't started yet in regards to the world, which we're thankful for. So I'm going to update you when I have gotten a certain amount of the way through. I do want to update you on the other fantasy romance that I'm currently reading. I've been talking about it in my monthly vlog, but I thought I would mention it here. I am about 60% of the way through A Daughter of No Worlds. This is a fantasy romance that I have like seen popping up here and there, and in the beginning of the story, Tisana is a woman who was sold into slavery when she was a child, because her entire village was basically slaughtered. and she is sold to this guy named Asmarius, and he has a whole like castle of slaves basically, and she is his favored. And she has some magical abilities. She can like summon butterflies and stuff, and so she's a dancer for him and for all of the nobility that come. And she has finally saved up enough to buy her freedom from him, and the conversation in which she does that results in his death. She goes on the run, and she runs to this organization called the Order, which is split into two factions, and she goes to them and says, I need help freeing the slaves that were left where I just ran from. But they tell her that she has to become an Order member, and in order to do that she has to take an apprenticeship, and she has to pass an examination. So she takes an apprenticeship with Max, who is an Order member, but he sort of wants to leave the Order, but he can't really, and so they train her to take this exam, and it's slowly like changed into something completely different. This is sort of like a slow burn romance between Max and Tasana, and it's pretty interesting. I will say I have been reading this very slowly, and I don't know if necessarily that was the best decision, because the world building is not very well explained, and I was hoping that the more I read it, the more would be explained, and that doesn't really seem to be the case. There's no glossary or anything like that for me to kind of read what each word means and each race means and the abilities and all that. Must have missed some sort of an explanation along the way, but reading it slowly has definitely been to my detriment, but it's good. Like, I definitely would be interested in continuing the series. At the 60-70% mark, it's like a 3-star. I can see how this would be like a really good series going forward. I think Tasana is a very interesting character. She has a lot of external motivations to free the people that she was enslaved with, and also sort of like make her family proud for the sacrifice that they made for her. And Max is also an interesting character. There is an inclusion of this sort of like all-powerful being that the two of them can wield. This being sort of destroyed Max's entire life, and it also won them a previous war, and now they want Tasana to wield it in this coming war, and that's an interesting play plot-wise, because this being is not morally great and the government that she's working for is also not morally great, but it's like, is any government morally sound and correct, you know? So it's definitely an interesting take that the plot has gone down, and I'm enjoying the little like hints of romance we've gotten along the way. So that one's pretty okay, but I still have a decent chunk left, so I'll probably update that one in my monthly, but I just thought I should tell you that I'm also kind of reading that one. And then I probably am going to do a Plated Prisoner series and Zodiac Academy separate vlog. Like, I'm probably going to do a Plated Prisoner vlog by itself and then a Zodiac Academy vlog by itself. Maybe, we'll see. I'm gonna get back into this and I will update you when I have some thoughts. I probably won't make this vlog go to the end of Sunday because my partner and I have some plans at the end of the day, so I'll probably get a little bit further into this and then update you. Okay friends, I have finished From Blood and Ash, and I'm gonna give this 4 stars like I did the first time. I really enjoy this. I think it's a good romantic fantasy, and it might not be like the most epic, but I don't think that's necessarily makes it bad. The writing is accessible for everybody, and I think the relationship there's enough in a relationship for you to grip onto. I think the world is explained enough to make it just fun, and the plot carries it along in a fast pace, and I just enjoy it. And I'm hoping that the second go round of the second book and the remainder of the series will go as well as this one does. Even if it doesn't, like, I like this one. I think it's a good fantasy and fantasy romance, and even if you don't, and even if I don't like the rest of the series, this one will be a reread for me, like a comfort read for me, just because I have fun reading it and it's easy to read and it's like comforting. So that means that's gonna be the end of the vlog. I'm really sorry that this video was like less than interesting, that I literally only talked about 2.5 books the whole video, but I'm trying to do better about just like letting videos be what they are. If I read 6 books in a weekend, if I read 2 books in a weekend, if I read no books in a weekend, you know, that is what it is. So I hope you enjoyed the video regardless of how little I read. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on anything I talked about. If you would be interested in seeing some separate vlogs for all of these books, I would definitely love to hear it. I will be spending the remainder of my year doing rereads and reading series and stuff like that, so it would be nothing for me to film vlogs for them. But let me know down in the comments your thoughts on anything that I read. If you don't have anything to say, leave a wolf of some sort down in the comments. If you're looking for more content from me, make sure you check out my Instagram or my podcast Instagram. You can also check out my podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. It is a horror podcast. It's a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one. Don't forget to subscribe if you are looking for more content like this. Thanks.